Tony Jones here. You're tuned in to the Coalition, coalitionradio.us. With me in studio, the PO taxpayer. Good evening.
Wake me up before I go.
Christine is here. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Tony.
PO, you had, well, actually, you were at Logan Airport and you got a little PO'd, as it were. So what happened?
Tony, having worked in the dreaded private sector now for a number of years, I'm used to the indignities, the petty indignities that comes from being someone who attempts to produce wealth in society, as opposed to the moochers and looters that dominate my world. So this past week, in a scene straight out of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, I got to journey back and forth to Chicago a couple of times. First time, no problem. Second time, by the way, I am the John Candy character in Planes and Trains. All right. So the second time, I spent 2.5 days essentially doing a one-day drive because of a variety of technical problems that arose. So after an exhausted day or so, I get to Chicago last night. And, on a clear moonlit night, with no traffic in the air, the fine folks at Southwest Airlines proceeded to introduce a 2.5-hour delay. But hey, that's not where the fun ended. Because, there's a wonderful service in Logan Airport called the Silver Line. And so there's all sorts of free or low-cost mass transportation out. But the problem with Logan Airport is that it's an island. And if, say, you get there after everything's closed, you're on an island. So when faced with the inevitability of spending the night there, I objected somewhat to my situation with Southwest, who firmly, politely told me as they escorted me out of the gate and down into the lobby that, well, stinks to be you. They told me, of course, to call customer service. Customer service, of course, told me it was up to the guy in the airport. And a state of policeman, Massachusetts Statey, who miraculously appeared just at that moment, I don't believe in coincidences either, told me that if I didn't leave right away, and if I made any sort of ruckus or noise down at baggage claims, I would be subject to arrest for disorderly conduct. Now, if you folks haven't seen me over the air, I'm truly the face and body made for radio. Again, the John Candy analogy is apt on several levels. I guess I am the new terrorist.
Do you sell reverse mortgages?
No. I sell vehicles manufactured here in this great United States. So, and I am the whitest man alive. And, on a bunch
it's true. I'm wearing sunglasses right now so that I don't burn my retinas here.
So two things I just wanted to throw out to my fine co-hosts here. Number one, the whole notion of manufactured hype, where an American or any corporation decides they're going to create a carefully crafted, constructed image of themselves, okay, and how that's going to play and how that contends with reality. And then the second question I have is, in the age after 9/11, one of my pet peeves as a frequent traveler is that airlines get to hide their incompetence behind the mask of national security. So here, at what point did the Massachusetts State Police become the enforcement agent for Southwest customer service?
Now, as a lifelong insomniac, before 9/11, some buddies of mine, we would go to TF Green Airport late at night and hang out and drink coffee and play video games because it was open 24 hours a day.
That never occurred to me. Yeah, that's a great idea.
I know, isn't that creepy?
It's creepy but good. I mean, do the bars stay open all night?
No, unfortunately not. You can buy a $20 magazine. So yeah, we would go there after whenever was going on, and we'd hang out at the airport. And this generation could not even wrap their heads around the fact that we'd go there and get a cup of coffee and do whatever.
Now, how many years ago was that?
Oh, geez, this was.
I assume it was pre-2001.
The late 90s, I would say.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you couldn't do that now with.
Not even close.
Yeah, that's disappointing.
Well, I get airport security. I really do. I mean, I've been traveling now for 30 years. I used to work part-time in the World Trade Center in New York. I was in New York City the first time it was attacked. I lost friends of mine the second time it was attacked. But ultimately, how much of this is economic cause and effect versus a real attempt at security? And again, I question, why is the Massachusetts State Police, why are they involved in what was a polite, slightly tense, but polite conversation about customer service policies?
Right, because it's not like you were going ballistic and...
No.
No, but my guess is that they're anxious about anybody going ballistic,
Right.
and that was his way of cutting you off at the pass.
Shoot first, ask later.
Yeah.
Yeah, but ultimately, where are we no longer allowed to object to anything that the great and wise and wonderful airlines do? I mean, is it bad enough that they've hijacked us emotionally and financially over the last several years, going in and out of bankruptcy, looking for all sorts of taxpayer support? We build these edifices under the theory of build it and pray like hell somebody comes up. I mean, we're building another terminal to nowhere, runway to nowhere at Green, under the auspice of our ever-expanding economy here in Rhode Island. Who's in charge? And why do I, as a civilian, have to be subject to this kind of crap? Because that's what it is.
Well, it's also, they used to actually, they used to advise people, if you want something from a corporation that isn't helping you, speak louder, be more persistent, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And now we're finding the squeaky wheel gets glared at by the cops.
The squeaky wheel gets tased.
Yes. There was an incident, I forget which state it was in. The cops had pulled somebody over, and they were blocking the driveway of homeowners. So the homeowner returns back, girlfriend and child in the car, and asks the cop to move, and the cop basically pulls them all out and makes them lie on the street.
Cops behaving badly.
Yeah, there's more of that. I mean, we probably could do a weekly segment and shouldn't bother because...
I have to drive home from here.
Yeah, exactly.
to East Greenwich, which, as we all know, is the hot spot for organized crime here in Rhode Island. Mr. Plain.
Didn't they bust a critical drug ring or something?
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a great line flashing across the net this week, and as libertarians, some of us are libertarians, but as libertarians, we all agree, I think, on this one. It seems like the most dangerous thing about pot is getting caught with it. I guess we had another political figure go down in flames this week at the hands of the E.G. Popo.
Right. And my question is, it's another non-story, and it's just an excuse to limb base someone.
Yeah.
And here's a guy who I can say that about. I've met personally. We've had a lot of conversations. We agree on nothing politically except for maybe the fact that you should be able to smoke marijuana in the privacy of your own home. And
Yeah.
I can see through that to the fact that this is a non-story of like a slow news day, I would say. This is something you should see on East Greenwich Patch or something of the like.
At most.
If that.
I mean, was he driving while under the influence? I didn't see anything about that
No.
in the article I saw.
The big fuss was that he said, I know the police chief. Well,
Yeah.
that's a stupid thing to say.
It is,
Do
but
you know
frankly,
who I am?
but frankly, everybody who does know the police chief, I'm sure, tries that. And it doesn't sound like
Right.
he threw a tantrum about
No.
it. I mean, I've there are people who get pulled over who throw fits. He didn't get to the "do you know who I am" level.
I'm just glad he didn't say it was my pot.
Because you are nothing if not one of the pillars of East Greenwich society.
I think one of
That's
the
a
morals.
scary thought.
One of the morals of the story, I think, is if you happen to be transporting pot in your car, put it in a coffee can.
Right. Or make some brownies like the rest
Yeah.
of us.
That's why God invented coffee
Put
grounds.
it in some sort of a glass jar with a closing lid. Don't walk around with it open so that your car reeks of pot. Be a little bit smart.
Maybe lock it in the trunk.
Yeah, be smart about it.
But to my adventures last night, I caught Amtrak to Providence this morning, and I was met by a phalanx of drug-sniffing dogs at Amtrak in South Station at 5:50.
Well, they've profiled you now.
Well, exactly. I am on the Little Rhodey, North Providence terrorist watch list, clearly.
I gotta say, I have to admit that I'd be loving me some Amtrak these days. Every trip to New York now, it's just on the Amtrak. It's no sitting in traffic, hitting Hartford, sitting in my car. And the good thing about that is that I don't have. If I take the Amtrak, I don't have to stop at any outlet stores with my girlfriend, right?
So you end up saving money.
You meant bridal outlet stores?
In spite of the ticket cost, you end up saving
we
money.
may be in a little 100-mile-an-hour moving prison, but I'm saving money. And now they have Wi-Fi, and they have you can plug in your phone, you can plug in your laptop.
Well, that's better than flying.
How about an impromptu gig on the Amtrak? Think of
I'm sure
with the
they'd love
Cretans.
that. I'm sure they would absolutely love that.
People will be paying to get off.
No, it's just it's sad. I'll spare you the unctuous tone of voice saying the terrorists have won. But if we've gotten to the point where all sorts of atrocities have happened in Boston in the last year on a serious note, and yet at the same time we're making the streets safe from upset, middle-aged, overweight travelers.
Who got the shaft, by the way. It's not like you were...
You had a valid complaint.
Yeah, it's not like you were upset because you only got one bag of peanuts.
Right.
You, in my mind, had a valid reason to be upset.
Because there are things the airline could have done. They could have scrambled to put you folks on a different flight that got you home earlier, or they could have said, "Who here is from Providence?" Show of hands, and we'll stick a bunch of you on a minivan.
And by the way, in any other industry, when you tell someone, "Well, that's your problem," things aren't going to go so hot for you. Word's going to get out.
I'm guessing they were a little more diplomatic in their phrasing, not in their intent, but their phrasing.
The killer, though, the final thought on this, the killer was at 2:30 in the morning. Both of the people that I dealt with walked right by me to go home and didn't say a word.
Right.
Despite the fact that I didn't jump ugly with him, I didn't insult him. I wasn't my usual obnoxious, abrasive, self-absorbed, narcissistic self.
You were tired, that's why.
Well, yeah.
What were they going to say? Hey, you want to stay at our place?
Actually, that would have been the nice thing to say, but...
Can I buy you... How about a cup of coffee?
No, I bet there's a corporate directive, don't engage the public after you're off duty or something like that.
It's funny you say that because through the miracle of the internet, in the 3 hours or 4 hours I had to sit there, I was able to find the home number of said vice president of Southwest, and I left a polite but chatty message on his
up at his place.
Answering machine. Yeah, I said hi to his wife, Beth.
What time zone is he in?
Central.
Okay.
So, I left a message for his wife, Beth, and, asked her about how her school was going. And, a couple of things that would actually create exactly what I guess I became last night, which is a stalker.
Well, the internet giveth and the internet taketh away.
God bless America.
Yeah, I have a quick news story queued up about the dreaded government shutdown that's coming up. Let's give that a listen. Let's talk about that. Then we'll take a break and we'll start chatting with our guest. Here's FSRN News.
In Washington, D.C., the House of Representatives voted 230 to 189 today to keep the government funded through mid-December at the current spending level, leaving the deep budget sequester cuts in place. The bill also defunds the implementation of the Affordable Care Act and drastically limits funding for other federal health care programs. In a speech on the House floor, Georgia Democrat John Lewis blasted the resolution for threatening key provisions of the health care reform law, such as the ability for young people to stay on their parents' insurance until age 26, and the ban on insurance providers from discriminating based on gender or pre-existing conditions.
Madam Speaker, the voters have spoken. The Supreme Court has ruled. The Affordable Care Act is the law of the land. It is constitutional. It is compassionate. It is what is right. It is what is necessary. Madam Speaker, health care is a right. It is not a privilege for the wealthy. Every citizen of the United States should be able to see a doctor when they need to. Every single one. This is a resolution that will stop that.
This is the 42nd time the House of Representatives has voted to repeal or defund the Affordable Care Act, commonly known as Obamacare, a move Democrats today called hostage-taking and an intentional act of brutality. Just after the vote, New York Democrat Jerry Nadler told FSRN he hopes party leaders will negotiate a different version of the resolution that boosts government funding in key areas of medicine, health, and education.
This bill is at a much too small level. It enshrines the sequester. The sequester is so damaging to people. The estimate are that it's costing us almost 1 million jobs, about 1% on GDP, on economic growth. It's harming so many people. It's throwing so many kids off Head Start. It's removing so many housing positions. It's destroying, to a large extent, our medical research. It means in the years down the road, more people die of cancer and other things. It's ridiculous. It's terribly destructive.
The White House has promised to veto the bill, and Senate leaders say it has no chance of passing the upper chamber. Negotiations to prevent a government shutdown will continue next week.